Greetings, peace. Let me jump right into this. I know I like my background. My backdrop. Got my teeth as well as, I don't know if it's ascension symptom. I don't know what the fuck it is. It's just shit in the egg. I'm eclipsing shit out. So much going on. Oh my God, I'm gonna jump into it because, man, let's give honor to source, to the creator and most high for making all this possible, ancestors known and unknown. Man, this moon in Cancer is highlighting a lot of things matriarchally, a lot of things as a representation of the patriarchal, but carrying both feminine and masculine energies, which carrying both the feminine and masculine attributes. What I really want to dive in is to a circumstance or something that needs to be highlighted. As much as like I tell y'all about like safety, highlighting safety or being secure emotionally, that isn't something that's very prominent in our society. And the reason why I have to discuss these things, no matter how uncomfortable it is, for a lot of people, we are not coming from. We have to bridge the fear and manipulative and also narcissistic templates or foundational floor plan we receive from mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers and so forth. Has it always been this way? No. Well, we're talking about eons ago, years, but I'm talking about in present day, to where again a person who is can show aggressiveness, through impulsive, can show being aggressive impulsively in an unhealthy way, in an abusive way. It's just as dangerous as someone who's unconsciously aware of their behavior patterns or learned behaviors through, let's say, passive aggressiveness. I was just telling my partner, I'm like, eventually, someone who is passive aggressive or have learned this behavior pattern is just as much of a threat to anyone, such as children or adults or even themselves, if they're unaware of the fact of how much they push down and repress and suppress throughout the years. And this is why I talk about my own experiences in even emotional intelligence. Again, bridging from the inability to connect to my emotions and having people who did not know what emotional intelligence was, realizing now how unsafe they were for themselves and me, and now being able to share a message and tell people like, listen, are like the prioritizing well-being. And I'm talking about even when you look at the concept of even psychologists or people who are in that field, whether medical and so forth, there still is a touchy subject on the fact of how naturally some of their solutions is to give people medication, and never in a holistic manner or certain things, again, where we can go down a rabbit hole with that one, but just the mindset on how I've seen in society wait until people are burnt out mentally, emotionally, physically, and have no solution for them, or even have no compassion for how far they're going off the deep end, to where they don't even throw a life jacket. They don't care to, because some people are so consumed by, I was just talking to someone about how this is a generation of elders who not so much lack, but are unaware of the fact of how much they are not teachable. They are so consumed and so stuck in their ways that they are not teachable. And this is that disconnect why I tell y'all about the importance of the inner child, the essence of who we are, where we're all here to learn. We're all here to remember, recover. When you remember or recall a childhood memory, whether it be a trauma or something joyful, then that reminds you of how vital life can be, or if you're going to revert back to a certain learned behavior pattern to where it's going to be detrimental to your experience. And being that we come from a society that has been so consumed by its own darkness, its own childhood trauma or experience, makes me dive into more of how we're dealing with people who are not teachable, who have the knowledge on what we're supposed to know and share the knowledge, but they don't have the wisdom. They don't live. we as millennials or people now are stepping up. We're speaking from experience, the experience that our families, grandmother, great grandmother, and so forth, due to, again, whether they didn't have the opportunities or where they couldn't start where we could. And that's not everyone's case, but it's more so the perspective around how we are supposed to approach it differently. So I'm gonna give you from experience. Recently, I knew of someone who, well, fuck it, I'm gonna just be like, I can't even just like sugarcoat this shit. My daughter had an experience in the daycare, and with that, she just returned one day, and I remember after giving her, bathing her, giving her, and then she getting in the bed, and then she came to me, or she said in front of me and her mom, like, hey, such and such teacher, the name, told me and clearly said it clearly, because at this age, around 4 and 5 or around 3, they are so much of a sponge to where they easily regurgitate behavior patterns. They regurgitate what's said and so forth. That's why I emphasize so much on what we're feeding our kids, or what we're, the accountability, even in trying to balance out what's safe for us and then what's safe for them. And then that's when we begin to break the generational chain and cycle. Because as we protect our inner child, that's when I step in and realize this child is an extension of me. So I have to teach her, inform her on how to protect her essence, her inner child. And so leading up to what she mentioned, she said such and such teacher said, being that, I'm gonna go in a little detail where, again, you have kids that are at an age where their emotions are so big, they're so powerful, and they have a way of not knowing how to control that very young. So some of them throw tantrums, as they say, or you have to teach a child, hey, it's not good to hit or throw things or do certain things. And with that, it's a teachable moment, because a lot of it reflects the fact of, hey, what did I go through as a child? Was I whooped or spanked for this? Was I immediately abused, abandoned, or neglected just because I had all these emotions? I wanted to express myself. So that being said, this was one of those incidents to where she said that this teacher, being that, I'm assuming that, not assuming, my partner was saying how when she was, ushering my daughter into daycare, and she was just having a temper tantrum. Kids get wild and do this, and then she ended up, I guess, hitting my partner unintentionally, because, again, every child have these emotions around this age. They're learning to manage them. So when you look at that perspective, and then even look at now how we as an adults who have forgotten about our childhood, who have learned behaviors such as whether verbal, physical abuse, or even the fact of passive aggressiveness. And so when we learn this, we take this and we lead with that. So back to the, returning to what I was speaking about, she said that, she told, I guess the teacher asked her what was wrong, and, it led to her expressing, writing a letter to, her mom about, hitting her, or something like that. And again, we have grown up in a society where this right or wrong, and not more of a holistic approach. This right or wrong is, the root cause of it is centered in a lot of fear. Like, if you don't do this, or if you don't do this, you're in trouble. Or, and that instills fear in a child. Or I'm going to whoop you, or I'm going to do this. That is a form, not only a threat, but also allowing the child to believe that you are more superior. You are, again, I had to learn this through even my experiences, that you are a first line of defense or protection, whether you know this or not, whether you're in tune or not, whether you're unconscious of it or not, is that's how powerful and aware our actions and what we say and what we do, through our imperfections, through us learning who we are. So she ended up writing a letter. Like I said, I had no knowledge of this until my princess was like, yeah, such and such said that if I was her daughter, then she would whoop me. Now y'all know I'm from the South. Not even just from the South. It immediately, I was like engulfed in rage, or immediately was initiated into protective mode. Now, being that she told me this on a Friday, I had to, like, in my mind, I had to feel, and I had to literally, like, recognize my growth in how I would react or would respond. Because, again, let me express this to a lot of you. Your children are assigned to you as much as you are assigned to them. Even through whatever traumatic experiences, even through, a lot of people not realizing, as deeper you become with yourself and know who you are, you will be able to see the beauty in how growing a child, growing a daughter, raising a son, the beauty of how much it mirrors so much of your inability at a time to connect to your emotions, or even mirror back to you so much of lessons how you can grow and connect or reconnect to your inner child. And so, again, I immediately put myself in my daughter's position, and it immediately brought up where I could not defend or protect myself. And so when she said that, the teacher told her to sit down, and she said this to her in a daycare setting, I immediately was like, what's the word, flabbergasted or pissed. Like, I couldn't even pretend, because it brought up the fact of even the abusive aspect of how, where again I could not protect myself, to where this is a child, to where this is outside of her first line of protection, which is her mother and father. You go into a setting where they also are trained or supposed to have more emotional intelligence, or even more awareness around how you approach children that are innocent. And the reason why this is so vital is because we have been groomed to not see the innocence in ourselves, and gotten so far away from that, from childhood experiences, that into adulthood, that we don't even see the innocence in people anymore. It's immediately guilt or attack, or even just any way we could sacrifice or let them go or get them out, remove them in any way, to easily take the fire off of us in a way, to focus on someone else's issues rather than our own. So other than that, like, that whole perspective has led me to like reflect and be like, wow, what is this teaching me? And the reason I bring this up, because again, we don't realize like the structures, the floor plan, the foundation, how in the last few hundred years and so forth, the importance of how the matriarchal, the distortion of the mother have been so wounded, or so complex, or so much confusion around even how it is to mother, how it is even to father. And soon as there is some type of discipline, there's a hypersensitivity around the fact of what's normalized, which can be more of an abusive, violent, or impulsive behavior in certain demographics, which has again allowed us to tolerate rather than discipline in a more holistic way. Tolerate rather than feel appreciated and seen. Again, for me, I had the compassion for my child to realize, like, whoa, 10 years ago I probably would have responded or reacted completely different, because of the fact of it immediately took me to a place where I could not, I had to put my inner child in place of her and realize, like, whoa, what does a man do? What do I do for myself first? And then how do I not, through my actions, put myself and everyone else in harm's way? And the funny thing about it is, like, It's not even funny, but I don't even know why I said that, but some things in life are a teachable moment to show you that in certain challenges in life, it's not always for you to you can win the battle or win the war by going to a certain staff member or going to a higher up and so forth. Now, that doesn't mean it's always going to be handled as you would like it to be. It's more so a teachable moment to where I have to balance out between navigate my emotions and realize like this person is also unaware that what they've said will impact a child and have a ripple effect on her caregivers or her guardians, me and her mother. And the reason I say this is because, when we're talking about coming from a distorted lens of what a mother and father should be and what the matriarchal has been enabling, our mothers are not safe. Our grandmothers are not safe. And I'm not saying all, but when you look at the deeper aspect, whether you have culturally a woman that is of a different complexity or different demographic, where she raises her children to grow up and just grow up around people that look like her, that still is a danger in that eventually where that child has to be introduced to people who don't look like them. Whether even a religious belief where you have people who grow up with a lens of just seeing certain things and then they grow up and realize and explore in the world that, well, hold on, there's other things out here too. So again, that self-discovery can lead to a resentment or to rage, and then even realizing like that passive aggressive learned behavior pattern can lead to self-destruction, whether you are in a demographic where you honestly believe that. Some people argue me up and down and realize like, oh, I probably would have said the same thing if she did that to me. I would have did that. And it's so funny because I've been around women like that I recognize this child or this person who's in a daycare setting, which this is normalized. A lot of stuff that when you look at certain demographics, these people are not screened or sat down with a psychologist or even have awareness around who they are on a deeper level to connect with themselves more on a compassionate level, to where they actually are in settings where they actually see children in a beautiful way. And this is why the mother and father wound is so important, simply because you have people in the settings where they do not know how to not even raise kids or be around kids. It's more so they have not even consistently been in healthy environments. So we're asking of these people who are mentally unstable or unstable or not mentally in a compassionate place, to where they're in settings just as whether it's your policing, whether it's your medical, on all different levels. They're in sectors or in places, positions, statuses where they not only aren't safe for them, whether they're passive aggressive, whether they're abusive with their power, they're not only not safe for themselves, they're not safe for kids or humanity. And you're seeing that demonstrated on all levels right now. When you have a system that doesn't prioritize well-being, that's crumbling in on itself, when you have the boomers or baby boomers, and then the generation that comes after that, again, that does not center come from a more whole place. They coming from a place of what they just experienced, whether they know it or not, and projecting that onto a society, onto children and so forth. And that's what the fuck it was. For that woman to be in that place to project that onto a child, it doesn't, as I expressed to the director, it doesn't, and to the lady, like, somebody else could have responded differently. I know mothers that would have responded differently. That could have spilled over. And this is where emotional intelligence come in, to where, again, that can be a perceived threat. If that was my child, you're quoting that was my child. She was my daughter, I would have whooped her. I'm like, and what do you think is going to come from that? And what do you think, who do you think that's going to benefit? What do you think that is going to do, again, in today's society where, in an environment where a child's supposed to feel safe and secure outside of their home? And again, this is going to be highlighted so much in society because it has always been. When you're talking about a passive-aggressive society, you're talking about women who have dealt with sexual abuse and men who have dealt with sexual abuse on all levels. I don't care if high-status people, that, I mean, you know, we all valuable, or people who are of certain status, they're not, you know, they too, in their position of power, have probably went through or even normalizes, you know, stuff as such. The disgusting part about it is that y'all, you know, we're not looking at the fact that when you prioritize or have people prioritizing material security rather than emotional, then that exposes everyone to being emotionally abused, spiritually, mentally, and so forth. And that's what you're seeing highlighted right now. And again, when you don't have generations where mothers have felt safe and secure, they don't even realize how unsafe they are. They don't even know that until someone brings it to their attention. And again, some of them are so set in their ways. Some of them are so set in their ways that the truth is a lot of people are going to fall on their sword. If you don't know what that means, look it up. And that's what you see in today's society. The very belief system people are believing in or are not willing to evolve or not willing to learn through said experiences to gain different perspective and wisdom. It's literally like a child not learning this lesson to keep going through the same thing, and it's like re-injuring itself, you know, or doing more harm, and not willing to learn, you know, to be able to, evolve or progress in life. So, again, that's what you're going to see highlighted. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, again, as I had to address the director and stuff, like, I don't have to lie to myself and say this is okay. Do I feel like this person is safe? No. And that's the thing where I'm bringing to your attention, where this is so normalized and tolerated in all sectors. You have school settings where you see this stuff still happening in schools. You see this, teachers or certain things who are touching on kids or stuff happening in school. Some teachers get a slap on the hand, and like, I don't think people realize how dangerous men who are emotionally unavailable, men who are not in tune with themselves, men who also are of certain status, who are passive aggressive in today, you know, the relativity or just seeing what's actually happening with our children, and they pretend not to see. They are just as dangerous. They're just as a liability as anyone else. And the women who are enabling them are just as much. The grandmas, the mamas who protect the predators, who allow certain behavior patterns to continue, allow them to fall on their fucking sword. And that's what's going to happen. I sit back and observe. I'm not at all surprised. Because there's so many different levels of things where, again, you have people who are initiating and enabling these things to continue to happen from a wounded lens, from a distorted lens, from even an unconscious lens of not even realizing how dangerous they can be, or a liability. And it's wild how we this what is it, preconceived notions, that's the word I'm looking for? No, just how we have prioritized certain things to be more of an asset rather than our material security has allowed us to prioritize monetary things rather over our internal well-being. Make that make sense? And so, how are we surprised that as we sit back and observe what's unfolding, what's been hidden, what no longer can be hidden? Y'all have manifested individually and collectively the very thing that you see in said office, or the very thing that you see in the world, leadership, or wherever it is. That is a collective thing to where we have contributed to that, whether we want to accept it or not. Whether we want to accept it or not, we have contributed to this. We have enabled it until we have to cut it off. And that's the thing with cord cutting, or even I've said before in another video, like gangrene. Some things you have to cut off to save yourself. And that's what in today's society, if we don't cut off the energy vampires and leeches when it comes to the fact of how your mama or grandmother or some people can be literally an energetic vampire or a leech, or even just the unhealthy attachments to things, how are you going to actually progress if you don't recognize that some of our learned behavior patterns has led us to a path of self-destruction, destroying not only ourselves but the people around us? Is to come into a more deeper awareness on how the fuck we're going to create a world that is more secure for ourselves and the generation after us. And as much as y'all want to think that certain characters, whether of certain status, is going to do it, they're going to continue living their life because they caught up in the loop as well. They caught up in the loop as well. And I wouldn't have never came into this awareness again to be able to recognize a sister that had the ability to project onto my daughter something that we don't even do as guardians. Because then immediately I had to tell the director, I've been abused. And some people will not even see, they will call physical abuse or getting whooped like justifiable. And that's the mental illness in society. And so with that, now this person has put themselves in a position for a grave lesson, or a great, karmic lesson, to where it's like setting karma to where your position is up at stake. And a lot of these things is a teachable moment for everybody to, like, hey, you may have, and my daughter quoted after, like, to say specifically what the woman said, like, she said she will, if she was her daughter, she would whoop her just like she whoop her sons. I'm sitting here like, or son or sons. Either way, for my daughter to regurgitate that is disgusting. And I bring awareness to the fact of how it's disrespectful, not only to myself, but I want to allow my child to believe or take on a narrative from not just a stranger, but that is a clear representation of a distorted mother, a woman who's operating in her woundedness, to even perceive to think that a child, just because she did something in her innocence or she's learning, shows me her inability to connect or to herself emotionally, to where most likely a lot of what you see in modern day society, people view children through a wounded lens from their own wounded child, from their own inner child. And that's based off, again, the root cause of a mother and father, what they dealt with. You are not in the position to be doing that. And the reason why this is so vital is so we realize in the new order of things and how we move forward, what are we protecting? Who are we protecting? Is it our inner child? Or is it trying to mask the fact of how even in these settings where you can have people who are passive aggressive towards something as such, and not realizing that still build rage in a child. That builds rage within me, because my inner child doesn't feel protected around you now. And that's what we have to realize. And that's even through my own experience of realizing, like, wow, I wasn't safe for me because because no one was safe for me. And that's the scary part about how I even confuse when you look at manipulation like that, whether it's a form of abuse, that is still a form of control, not surrenderance. Control. You're trying to control the child by, feeling like I have to do this just for you to act right, but not realizing her learning through you is also a form of how she's learning a behavior pattern. This is why she repeated and regurgitated what you said. This is the reason I break this shit down. We all are going through something or have went through something where you're talking about learned behavior patterns to where it's like, oh my gosh, where's the accountability now? I'm at this age of full acceptance that I brought this upon myself. Now, how could I create more safe environment for myself and those that are connected to me? And then how could I bridge that to other families or tribes or people who also desire that same deep acceptance or safety or even happiness? Because you're not creating happiness for that child just because you think that you have to beat them. Does that even make you happy? I would sit down with anybody who think a form of abuse like that brings you happiness. That's fucking disgusting. And that's the thing where society, where you see the violent behavior through the silence, of carrying so much emotions, never acknowledging things. We have literally accepted the fact of we clap for such behavior. Oh, he should have whooped it. She should have. I'm like, what? I'm not clapping for that bullshit. I'm not clapping for none of that. Because there are mothers out there who deserve to feel safe again, who are unaware of these learned behavior patterns. There are little girls out there that I see who also maybe are fatherless, who again are seeking some type of safety or safety net. When you look at our generation, our youth and our generation, is because that's what not only adults are seeking, but children are seeking. And when you don't have the proper guidance or people like showing them through not only actions, but expressing it, being it, embodying it, then you're going to have confusion, and then you're going to create more resentment. You're going to create more cycles of, a relentless to just be inauthentic or not walking in integrity. And so that right there, you can see why, again, when I did say something to the director and the young lady, I can still see the little child in the girl, in the woman. She couldn't even look me in the eyes. And I'm telling y'all from experience, she couldn't even look me in the eyes because it was more shame and guilt. And it wasn't that I want you to feel guilty for what you did. That's on you, how you feel. What it is going to be more a conviction of discipline. Like, hey, you are a woman. You once were a child. Now, whatever you learn, this ain't that. This ain't that. Because my child, and that's the thing, it ain't even about my child, but, she's her own individual. She's learning on her own. And that's the thing where we have overlooked so much because we've been so consumed by fucking adulthood. We've been so consumed by the fact that we don't even see ourselves as children no more. We don't even see in society the innocence, the purity, the joy. We've been so disconnected from our happiness and joy and safety to where we unconsciously created for other people. We built society and a community around it for other people. And then we misuse our power spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Abuse of power. Whether you're a mother or father, you abuse your power whether you know it or not by not even honoring who you are and your authenticity or having compassion for your inner child. That's what's being restored. That's what balance is about. So that's why a lot of you can't see your daughters in an innocent way. That's why a lot of people in certain status or certain places who have these roles that they're playing, who don't have the awareness around being able to see the innocence in themselves. So they're naturally not going to see it in other people. And actually see the behaviors of why these kids act the way they act. That shit is learned behavior. Even adults, that's learned behavior. I wanted to even ask the girl, like, hey, but at the time, I had to navigate my emotions because I could not ignore the fact that I was angered as a little boy would be angered. That's what y'all don't realize. I was angered around the fact of, how dare you, but what's the root cause of this behavior? Why are you acting the way you are? And then in this setting, so again, it's the highlighting around the fact of what represent a distorted mother, or and that's all in all cultures, where you're talking about people who hide from themselves and go out here and parade behind, I don't care if it's makeup, materialism, and so forth, and on all levels. I don't care if they're artists and so forth. It's sad. It's so interesting how you have people who can allow their children to be treated. And let me see. I'm gonna show you how this shit is displayed on all levels. You got certain artists who will make music but won't let their daughters listen to it. You got certain artists on all levels they'll make music but won't let their children listen to it. You got people who will go out here and do things but won't let their children be involved in it. And what I'm saying is, it's almost like they're trying to mask themselves around trying to make a living, but delivering misguiding the youth purposefully. What? You think it ain't consequence to that? Shit. I look at people of certain status too, whether sports and stuff, who don't even protect their children's image. I'm telling you, boy, I see things from so many different perspectives. It ain't just protecting their image. It's the protection of how we come from a society that has exploited not only our inner child, but when you prioritize material security, you exploit your child on all levels, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and so forth. And then that eventually plays out into the physical. So now you're exposing your child more in an image of to try to uphold your image, but don't even protect their inner child. That's why a lot of people of certain status, their children are going to rebel against even how they want to be seen in this false identity of their mother and father. They can play along with it now because you can see them grooming their child right before you. But the thing about this is that the safety, the deeper aspect of that, it shows you the lack of, intelligence that the mother and father have because of the society. When they allow themselves to be exploited, to be exposed, to be disrespected, I don't care who you are of certain status, they also still represent the distorted mother and father, the inability to connect to their inner child. So as much as y'all think people have an advantage just because of money and status, listen, on a bigger picture, I couldn't ever want my child to be exploited or even exposed the way it is, because seeing how not only hypersensitive but hyper violent, like I can go on a list, a tangent of how so much is so important to protect not only your essence of your inner child, but through that exposure, or exposing your child so young, you're not only putting them in harm's way spiritually but physically. And that's one thing I realized, like these children that are coming in, being initiated in here, these souls and so forth, they come with guidelines. When I say you're assigned to your child, and a lot of you are have a deeper heightened awareness around your generational curse breaking or your intergenerational patterns, it's because as you change it, not only will your approach change, but your approach to your children, because you're teaching them a behavior pattern. If I didn't have the protection when I was young, I'm here not only to protect myself, but also be a spiritual protection for my children, and a physical protection. Even through my imperfections, I have to learn that. So they realize, oh, I saw my father go through the integrity of being who he was, even when he was, his name was slandered, or even when he wasn't accepted, or even all these things. No, teaches them the importance of, again, spiritual currency, knowing that you don't need the world's acceptance. And that's why so many kids on so many levels are getting exposed to so many energies when you're talking about social media and so forth. You put your children on there, you're doing all these things and unconscious of the fact of who you're exposing your children to. I was telling the guy the other day who was at a playground, and I don't know what it is about people. Again, this is that disconnect emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. I'm not convincing people that your life has to be like mine or anything. It's the awareness of how things are going to peak even more of people who cannot hide what the fuck they're facing inside. And so with that, you're seeing a shift from not just more emotional security. You're going to see people more highlighted on emotion. Well, there was a highlight on material security, but now you're going to see people shift towards more of an emotional security. That emotional security is going to initiate our mothers, especially, and men, to be honest. Fuck all that snitch culture shit. It's time for people to build foundations on honesty. Y'all protect the predators. You protect the people who make this make sense of putting drugs in the neighborhood, giving your mama, feeding your kids and stuff, and you normalize it and prioritize as if that's something to be honored and praised. Man, fuck out of here. What's the integrity in that? Especially coming from a mother who's still trying to battle through the fact of getting away from that vice. And other women out here, you're seeing a lot of baby boomers, people from the 80s who lived through that, early 80s, 70s and stuff, who are still, you see even more highlighted now on the street, who are now crashing out, who know nothing else. I had to tell a brother at the store, no, I'm not giving you nothing simply because I have to prioritize my well-being. I can give with my heart, but it's still a boundary in saying no, because I know what you're going to do with it. That's because I love myself, and I love you more not to realize I have to give you this. I'm not obligated to. Out of respect for myself, no. And it's like a father energy to a son, me to him. Like, no, I want to see you do better. So guess what? I'm not going to give you this. Now, it's different for someone who's wanting food, who don't know how to get it. That's a whole other rabbit hole. But again, we're talking about a perspective on the ability for us to now be more aware. These boundaries that we're setting is learned behavior patterns that we're going to teach our kids. Who to stay away from, who's not safe, who to protect yourself from. Discernment. Our mothers are coming back into a deeper awareness of discernment. As you lean more into your intuition, you're rebuilding. The matriarchal is being rebuilt in a more holistic aspect. The matriarchal is being recreated, and in that recreation of what's being restored, the image of the woman is being recreated. Not what the old world was, in a distorted way of what the mother represent, and that is a representation of all creeds and colors of what the distorted mother represented. Artists, people of certain status, politically, all over on the world stage. All of that shit is being dismantled, and new characters are coming to play. Because this is the thing about how those certain characters of people, now I'm talking about the industry, music, everything will be destroyed through the patriarchal aspect that you're seeing right now. Why is that? Because you wonder why the very women who have been enabling and been a part of it, they too, I don't care how much millions and billions that they have, they too were a part of enabling the very men who they passively aggressive allow these things to happen, never spoke up because of their fear of what? Transition or death? So what? The energy only comes even more powerful. The message is going to get louder. The knock is going to get louder, no matter who you are. And so again, in the reconstruction and the rebuilding of the matriarchal, that will begin, the patriarchal will come into play. Those who honor, those who are, who are familiar with the divine masculine and divine feminine aspect. There is no more cutting corners or cutting through loops and no. Y'all have prioritized men who have stepped on the backs of your ancestors and your grandmothers and mothers to build this bullshit that y'all see today. So you deserve karmically exactly what's coming to all of you, because no one's exempt. No one's exempt. Even I ain't exempt, because I can see certain men in my life, whether womanizing, whether through the inability to face their mother wounds, were a part on different levels of the same shit. I can see the women too. They're not exempt. They were a part of the same things, and that's why you have to cut off those very people that no longer serve you in this eclipse season or whatever it is, who you knowingly are having done the inner work or shadow work to bring forth this new order of things that reflects what truly a mother energy embodies in a more holistic way, not a fearful way, not a codependent way, not an inauthentic way, not a passive aggressive way, not a manipulative way. All of those energies are going to be highlighted right now in everybody. And this is why people, no matter how much you dress it up, no matter how, that shit gonna be shown on people's face. What they're facing, what they're going through, it's going to reflect in their life. Pay very close attention. Be very discerning about people. Again, as you raise, as you elevate, when you're on a path of alignment and authenticity, it'll be very clear to you, whether visions, dreams, or even physically, who is what and so forth. So when they try to peek or show themselves, no, it's going to be made very clear. Your discernment is your gift. Your intuition is your way out. You're loving yourself. You're nurturing yourself. Your mother and father, wherever you at, starting where your mother and father couldn't, is your way out into a more harmonious, blissful, peaceful life that they did not get to live. Because they did not want to do the inner work. And it's the same thing with this country and other countries. A lot of you are in places where you're going to be guided away and out because of the inner work, because of the lessons you chose to learn or learnt, the things that you refuse to no longer keep hidden, or I have to speak about because it's just my vulnerability is a superpower. No matter if I'm liked by a family or accepted by anybody, I know how to be with me, and there are others who align with that. So yeah, it's made very clear who's not safe, and they cannot fight it no more. Again, it ain't even just about choosing side. It's just about the fact of choosing to stay in the darkness and stagnant is your choice, not nobody else. Everything is replaceable, and everyone and everything through seasons. Right, you seeing this shit happen right through the Virgo up to Libra season, and that's the beauty of it. To bring I'm telling you, Libra gonna bring so much balance. There's gonna be so much things that you have to see what has caused the root cause of why we do what we do, why is society like this, the communities, the environments, and it's going to operate. The energy is going to play out through the very root causes of it. Think about that. The very people, the very persons, the very communities, the very characters, and so forth. Awareness around us is like, are you able to see the mirror? Are you able to be aware? Are you able to be discerning? Are you able to stay rooted? And that's what Virgo season been revealing. Have you been watering your roots? Have you been watering yourself? Have you been listening to your body? Because I can honestly say, like, the real deal is like, yo, if you're not recognizing where you're not safe and where your happiness is, and if it's still focused on external shit, you still thinking people can bring you safety? Man, all I can say is, hey, watch out, be aware, because that makes a lot of sense from a monetary system where people find a sense of security from a material-driven society and environment and people, to where, what's the flip side of that? The energy. People will do the very things in desperation, or because of their floor plan and their foundation is built upon that. People will literally self-destruct and try to obtain more because of their inability to surrender to the divine, to surrender to the bigger picture of allowing things to unfold, or to be through the chaos of the new things of creation. The chaos has to play out through people who have been hiding it. Shit, that's no difference than a child throwing a temper tantrum, just like me, having to realize like the things that I could not ignore more in myself that was very chaotic. It had to come out in relationships. I'm not ashamed. It had to come out in my responses or my reactions to life and so forth. Till I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna feel shame and guilt around what I've learned. Now that I realize like it was me, and now how could I respond to this? That's what it is about doing the inner work. Is that you realize like mastering that part to where I would have done this years ago. It's just like a child. But now I can better approach it. I can do things completely different now. And that's where discipline comes in. I see more joy in moving forward and enjoying my life, because that's my choice, rather than trying to realize I gotta react this way. No, I will give a person a message and realize like, listen, you're not able to do that this time. This ain't it. And so now when legal series come in, these actions are going to be very shown through partnership relationships and businesses and so forth, to where balance has to be restored. That's why it's so important to be integrity and be authentic with self. So you realize that whatever someone's showing has nothing to do with you. I don't have to take it personally. I have to realize like how I want to respond to this. And that's what's so amazing about all of this, is how that has taught me how to move away from an unhealthy relationship with myself to more of a balanced and holistic approach towards all of my relationships and partnerships and business and so forth. Listening to my discernment. Realizing like I don't have to move like they move. I don't have to live here. I don't have to do what they did. I don't have to approach like this, that was their shit, this is mine. And with that, if I realize that creates more ease or creates more harmony with what I'm doing, then so be it. Whoever objects to that, let them live their life. That's their reality. If it pisses them off, they feel uncomfortable, that's on them. I cannot control that. So yeah, I just want to share that with y'all. Realize like, man, a lot of what's happening is going to continuously be exposed. Just it's all how you respond to it. That's the beauty of like seeing things come up and out of people and be able to transmute it and alchemize it no matter what. So y'all take care of yourself. Peace and blessings. Shalom.